we have folks from all over. Really, I think the only place that we don't have a ton of coverage is probably Asia. But yeah.
Well, incredible. I think I'm on the absolute reverse side of the equation. We have a lot of folks from Asia, but still trying to reach out to the English-speaking countries over there. But I think with the it's probably with the server you guys have. It's absolutely intriguing looking at all the writing and the mysteries, but I think the translation may indeed be quite heavy, especially with all the lore and language used. But definitely,
we try to make it as global of a community as possible. So it's the translations are obviously the tough part of making sure that it stays global, and it's something I'm very cognizant about.
Okay, only 2 more minutes and we can begin. Guys, well, let me grab a new cup of water as well. I'll mute some of the dudes around here. Up and stirring. So we may have more than 100 people here. So, but it's just us streaming your screen, hopefully, not opening cameras, so it should be okay. All right, 1 more minute, and we can begin. Quite a turnout here. See a lot of new faces. I think some of them may be from your server, while some are from Guildfy. We are doing we're doing a October event with Guildfy. Guildfy is one of the biggest gaming guilds in the world, and the leading one in Thailand. And they have this October event on their platform, and we're the final quest together with me, Nokuni, and so you'll see a lot of Thai and new people around town today. Just peeking into what the project is. So I guess it would be a great introduction for you into Asia, because Thailand is actually one of the most responsive places in terms of crypto, and especially in gaming as well.
Love that. So yeah, let's just talk a little bit about this. I can even start. I have a full deck that we can even walk through. Just to start, Lost Drums is one of a few things that is cooking on behalf of Tribe, which is the parent studio. We have been in stealth for roughly 14 months, give or take. And during that time, we spent a lot of hours just learning, and more than that, building. But there's been a lot of things that have come and gone. I myself have been in the space in NFTs at least since early 2021, and the founder has we met probably in October or September of last year, and we degened a great many projects together. PFP projects, play-to-earn projects, you name it. For some time, I was double hatting NFTs and my day job, which I had left last January, and it's been Web3 ever since. Purely Web3. And as far as my role at Tribe, I am currently the COO, where I work on pretty much everything, just wear a lot of different hats, whether that's product, game design, overall strategy, daily operations, project management, if we're talking about community. The founder, Nick, and I, we two-manned the initial launch of the Discord for like the first 2 or 3 weeks. I think people didn't realize that it was us, but yeah, it was. If you were wondering who I am in the server, my handle is Vile. So that's me. That's the studio.
Cool.
Yeah. So I'm happy to start if you think we're ready.
Yeah, I think we're ready. I think we've got enough dudes right here to kickstart it.
Perfect. Give me a second to share. Oh, no, the PDF is not pulling up. Give me a second. Perfect. So yeah, to give you a little bit of information about us, even before I gave you the intro of who I was in the studio, I think it helps to level set and talk about our ethos and DNA as a studio and what it is we plan to be. And I mean, our primary goal is to deliver what we believe could be the next golden age for the player. And what that means is that more than just being a Web 2 game. Sorry, can we mute, please?
Yeah, I'm muting them. Yep, keep going.
So, thank you. So I think more than just being a Web 2 game with NFTs slapped on, or anything of that sort. I think there's a subtle and fundamental shift of how you construct games in this new environment, and it comes down to the user behaviors that are inherent within it. It comes down to the way that the economies are structured, and everything in between. From the fact that with blockchain and permissionless design, you can unlock a lot of different features that didn't really exist in Web 2 as readily. And here we write here customer centric. I like to call it player centric or holder centric. And if done right, that's what we think Web 3 can unlock. And our primary goal is to learn from the mistakes that were made in Web 2 with, for example, free to play. That wasn't necessarily in players' interest, and in Web 3, where some of the same design decisions perhaps got in the way. And we saw that with the first wave of the game.
Agreed.
And with Lost Realms, what you will see is that as our debut title, we will showcase all of these things and what we learned. And in our year of stealth, as I mentioned, we spent a lot of time just degenning lots of stuff. Nick himself, again, founder, he had done plenty of diligences on behalf of VCs and companies for Web3 startups, including Play to Earns. And so he's also very familiar with the environment and how you think about the different considerations. But in this past year, I'd say these are probably the 5 things that we have learned. And I won't cover every single one in detail. If you are interested, we actually do have a Medium article for just this. And to just talk about some of these key elements. One of those key elements we discovered in this past year is that we think that Web3 games need to embrace the power of NFTs fully. And when I say that, that seems sort of intuitive, right? Like what's new about this? And so to dive in a level deeper than that, what it means for us is going with an NFT first economy, not a token first economy. One of the key mistakes that I think that games had made in the first wave was to have ICOs and IDOs that effectively created 2-class systems with players. And it was for very reasonable justifications, like if you want to build a game and you need to scale, you need to raise. But this has certain downstream ramifications that we saw. If you are selling tokens at a discount to who are primarily speculators, more interested in token going straight up than actually playing and participating in your game and economy, you have someone who is going to, in my view, dump on actually come in. Mm-hmm. With these ICOs, IDOs, generally the game is pretty far out. and that's what ends up happening. And that's why, of course, token unlocks are such a big deal. And I think the second thing to realize about the first wave of gaming with token-first economies is that once you design an economy, it is very hard to unwind decisions that you have made. So if you put 1 billion tokens out into an economy, have people stake it for 200% APY, and then just leave it there with very little sinks because the game's not ready, you have a highly inflationary economy that is now hard to control. And you can't, if core game design decisions and economy design decisions change, you now have a consistent, a constant that you cannot adjust for. You can't adjust the economy like that at that point. And so when the game economy begins, what results is a phenomenal amount of sell pressure. And with fragile game economies, I mean, that's the real challenge in Web3. How do you create a sustainable economy when there is now a two-way system? Like, unlike Web2, where if you're not counting the black markets, it was really money in and not really money out. Now you're trying to figure out how do you create an economy that can sustain like that. So this is what we mean by embracing the power of NFTs. So if you are an NFT holder, you are the first layer of value in the ecosystem. And this is what we believe, and all of our design decisions have been based around that facet. And you can see some of this other stuff that we've noticed in the past year. Compounding ecosystems, again, if you've been paying attention to Bored Ape really popularizing the airdrop meta, I mean, that's really what it's encapsulated in. Having one asset that has the potential to grow to many things, that can segment, that can target different users, that can grow the user base. Like, these are the things that have succeeded this past year. And with web-based gameplay, I mean, you have seen the news on Apple, and some people think it's bullish or bearish, depending on your perspective. We think that Web3 is still going to be in the browser for at least the near to midterm. And we want to make sure that we have control over the platform that we are on. Additionally, I mean, for anyone who's been in the space long enough, it's not like mobile UI UX, especially for Ethereum, is not phenomenal. And so for that reason, most of Web3 is still on the browser. And that's where we primarily design our games. It's not that we won't move there. The team is actually very well experienced in mobile. I think between the team, there's something like 20 number one iOS, Android hits and a couple console hits. We're experienced in mobile, and the games that we're building are going to be built on Unity engine. So there is always an easy transition into those different platforms, AR, VR, console, mobile, when that permits. And we see that there's opportunity. So our focus is really on who's here today, and that's going to be on the browser. And the last one that we learned, well, there's a couple others that we learned, and I'll skip over innovative smart contract design. I think that's relatively self-explanatory. You mentioned before that it's quite mysterious, and I think there was a lot of notes about the quote-unquote storytelling meta in the past couple months. I think storytelling has been inherent in this space from the very beginning. I mean, if you think about Forgotten Runes, one of the projects we partnered with, they launched probably, I think it was like mid-2021. So it's been around. And what I think the real sweet spot is to incorporate storytelling into the other pieces of the products that you build. And this is what creates a level of immersion and attachment to what you create, more than just financialization, which is inherent in Web3, but can't be the only thing. And so these are the 5 things that we have noticed in this past year that we really loved and wanted to incorporate into what we do. At the same time, we think there are things that can improve. And this is one of our goals, to raise the bar and the standard for what is acceptable in this space, and to hold ourselves to that higher standard. As you've noticed in the past year and a half, anyone who's been here, I'm sure a great many of you have seen it, people are conducting fundraisers in this space to then build stuff. And so fundamentally, these are Kickstarters where then you as a buyer are then forced to hold on and wait. And I mean, in the gaming world, that would obviously be unacceptable in a Web2 atmosphere. So why would it be acceptable here is what we think. And our goal is to have Web3 experiences ready at mint. And we could talk about what those experiences actually mean. But in our context, it's having an experience that grows with you over time. So you'll see features layered over time in the same way that the Discord has been. If any of you have been in the Discord for any period of time, you'll know what I mean, where it started out where something is happening, people joined, and then there were different mini games, channels would come in, come out, and it always felt like there was something different going on every single week. And that to us is probably the target model for the space for Web3 gaming in particular, given the users who are here. A few other things that you'll notice: full stack game team. We have not outsourced game dev to anybody. And this is to align incentives, and we have our team across every vertical that's important for for game dev. And you can see some of those verticals and functions here. That's cross tech and product. We also have a growing community team on top of that, and we think that community is the lifeblood of Web3, and it's something that we fully ascribe to. You'll see some of these other pieces that we want to hit, like built by and for Web3 natives. I think that can't be stated enough. And there are a number of companies in the Web2 space who want to enter, but don't really understand the user base that keenly, and don't understand the drivers of value and how players and holders here in this ecosystem see value. And so I think the ideal studios of tomorrow will have hybrid teams of both, and not both in the sense of having a Web2 team with with Web3 soldiers. It'll be like people who've had both Web2 and Web3 experience who are helming the top of the captains of the ship. And so these last two I'll bundle together, and it really goes back into what we discussed regarding a truly player-owned economy and making sure that players are first. And that is our mantra, that we want to put players first. We have not raised any VC funding yet, and that was a very, very intentional decision. We don't think that it makes sense to raise and give VCs tokens because we want to make sure that the economies put players first, and that it is as sustainable as possible. It's not to say that we wouldn't raise, but we would raise without the prospect of giving investors tokens. And that holds true for our studio, where about 90% of the funding is internal and about 10% is various Web3 angels. And those investors have not received any token tranches. It's purely equity. And in our view, this aligns the incentives. And that's really the key part of Web3. How do you align incentives between your players and holders who feel more like, in some ways, have an ownership mentality over their assets, and you as the developer, as well as your external investors? And that is a fundamentally key part of how you construct your game and your economy. So I'll pause here in case anybody has any questions.
I've been a lot of the community, but I just want to. There's just something really, really bothering me. I guess I hear a slight snoring, and is that your doggy?
Yes, it is. Sorry.
Oh, awesome. No, it's fun. It's absolutely cute. I love dogs. I just want to make sure it's the dog. Okay, but well, I absolutely agree with you on almost a lot of the points. Practically, pretty much the first point regarding a token-focused economy versus an NFT-centric economy. The NFT-centric economy actually came up by our COO as well, Loremaster. He stressed the importance of an NFT-centric economy when he designed our game. But I do have a differing view from the token side, though. I mean, VC investors, as VC-oriented as a lot of them are, still there's quite a lot of VC investors that has the passion and the genuine belief that a lot of Web3 projects, especially gaming projects, are one of the key milestones for the adoption of Web3, and they are really helpful. And you meet a lot of different types of investors. Some of them are straight up going to sell your tokens the moment they're not small, but there are also equally amount of investors out there that's really great. So I'd say it's it's a bit of both worlds. But yeah, if you can go with a full NFT and holder-based approach, I think it would be wonderful. But of course, funding and everything aside, as long as the team can handle the runways, that will be perfectly fine. And I think there's a lot I can learn from your project and from the way you guys present and lay these out. I think you guys really did a lot of research and have a lot of hands-on experience in building communities, working with the communities. That's something, well, Apeiron would sorely need to practice, because we're more from a more Web 2 approach. We only sort of changed our design for the Web 3 last year, so we still need a lot of time to really cope with what Web 3 truly entails. But anyway, I won't babble on. I think I'll let you talk a bit more about the game. I see a lot of questions beginning to grow on the AMA questions side. So yeah, I'll let you sum up, and then we can interact with the community. Let's go.
Yeah, sounds good. And on your two comments, yeah, I fully agree that in a lot of ways VC investing is necessary, because VCs fundamentally provide the funding that you need to build, to grow, to scale. They provide a lot of the connections that people need to succeed and thrive in this space. And that's not to say that there are certain design decisions that we have made that we think help create more sustainable economies. And it's not really so much the nature of, does a VC believe in the space and will they dump right away versus later? It's more a sense of, if you have an entity who owns 10 to 20% of your token tranches, who also is not an active participant of your game and is not necessarily actively sinking token into your economy, I mean, their primary mandate is really IRR. So here, what you're introducing is a third party whose main mandate is to make sure to extract when it's the right time. And again, this is not to say everything you have said is absolutely true. It is just our thesis that if you create a truly player-owned economy where it is players who own the tokens and investors own the equity, you align incentives. You make sure that to de-risk your economy in an already really fragile state that it's in with Web3, with money out. You make sure to de-risk as much as possible to ensure that it is as sustainable as possible. And that's just our thesis. And that's been our working model in modus operandi since we began. And to your
I think this is something I really agree as well. But ultimately, it's for me, it's just identifying the core users, especially in the beginning, because what Apeiron has been doing is just trying to identify gamers and core users. Even in our mints and everything, in every single AMA I had repeated, this is not a project that is going to go 20 times and 30 times upon mint. It's nothing going to be like that. I'll market make the ceiling if I have to, because there's really not trying to attract speculators into the economy. But what I want to bring out is, even with NFTs, with an NFT-centric economy, it still can't really be avoided. After all, a lot of people entered Web3, and still the bulk population of Web3 right now is mostly regarding around the speed with which a lot of people can make money. So it will take a lot of education and time to educate the users and to find the right ones. Ultimately, a lot of them will still target to get IRR to make a profit, and they will still sell. But I guess yes, that's where the next part of your presentation probably is going to entail, because the ability for NFTs to further produce more resources based on interaction is probably where Lost Realms is going to be headed, especially with the user-driven narratives. Sorry. I'll let you hand you the mic.
Yeah, and here I guess that always comes up in conversation, where you ask yourself, who are you building for fundamentally? Is it people who are today, people who are tomorrow? And a number of studios have really shied away from the the trading type of model for gaming, because they've seen that the first wave hasn't really lived up to aspirations, and they've gone the complete opposite direction, where they've said, we're going to make our gameplay completely active. You can only earn rewards if you play the game, and in some cases there is no NFT to start, and the NFTs that you generate or are rewarded are just cosmetic NFTs, which can then be tradable. And so, in that way, a lot of these Wave 2 games are going with that model, where they want to obviate any economy risk. They want to minimize as much as possible the amount of speculation that occurs, and I think that's a model that absolutely can work. Is it a model that's going to attract people today, with the users who are here today? To your point, that may not be true, and that's a thesis that these companies need to test. Most likely, what I foresee is that the ones who are aiming for highly active gameplay are going to be looking to try to onboard users, particularly traditional gamers who are looking, not necessarily looking to on-ramp into Web3, but are curious enough to try it. And so, for us, as Tribe specifically, our primary motive right now is to build for those who are here today. And a lot of our design decisions have been created because of that thesis. I do foresee that this space will grow quite a lot in the next year and 2 years, especially. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Digidagaku and how much money they plan on spending just for onboarding. So, like, I think that's something to be expected. But as of right now, we understand that, let's say out of the 40,000 wallets that are active in the space right now and are key users, at least on Ethereum, let's say 75% of them are trader oriented. That's absolutely true. And so you'll see a lot of design of our game is based around that model of users, where users aren't necessarily going to spend 3 hours per day playing a game very actively because they have 50 different tabs open. As I speak to you right now, I have like 100 tabs open, and I need to close. So this is like my day job, plus keeping track of the news, plus lots of other random things, right? So when you have that many things that you're doing, maybe your session length isn't 3 hours, maybe it's like 10 minutes. At the same time, you want to provide flexibility for someone who wants to spend 10 hours a week or something like that. And so our game design is meant to flex for that, where if you are primarily a kind of person who's a more passive gamer, which again is a bit of a different profile versus Web 2 gaming, there's space for that. If you want to be a more active gamer and get the maximal rewards, cool. There's also space for that. So that's in general what I think about how gaming will move forward. That's not to say, like, in the future we don't plan for that. We do. We plan to scale when it's ready to scale, and when users who are not Web3 native want to onboard. And most likely they're going to onboard via free-to-own mechanisms, as we call it, free-to-own now. So that's those are my overall thoughts.
Well, let's move on to a bit to your game, the actual gameplay. If you guys can divulge any, it'd be wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to talk a little bit about our team, we have probably 35 people on the core staff, and
right. I
think if all included, like community mods and etc., that's probably 45-ish at this point. The team has had a lot of different backgrounds. The founder, Nick, he was the VP of monetization at Natural Motion, which produced a slew of #1 titles. If any of you are familiar with the game CSR Racing, that was created by Natural Motion, and at the time that it was released and was #1, I think it was the highest grossing game of all time at that time, and since then has been eclipsed by a number of other things. But yeah, that's his background, and then he had gone and started his own gaming studio, where I think he had raised from Greylock, CAA Ventures, Google Ventures, amongst a few other outfits I might be forgetting. But all to say, he's not a stranger to raising, and he's very familiar with that environment. We have other folks on the team. You could see some of the studios that they're from: LucasArts, Natural Motion, Machine Zone. Our economy designer and game designers, they hail from Machine Zone. So basically, the folks, we have experience in building this, in maintaining multi-billion-dollar economies, and that's why economy design is such an important part of what we're thinking about. So that's our background. Again, as I mentioned, there's a number of iOS hits between all the members of the team. Myself, transparently, I do not have a gaming background. My background, I am a doctorate in the sciences. I spent some time, 2 years rather, in management consulting, where I was helping solve questions like, what is our 5 to 10 year strategy for our business unit that generates like $10 billion of revenue, $20 billion? How do we diligence this company for acquisition, and how do we properly forecast what the future of revenue will look like for it? For anywhere between $500 million to $3 billion acquisitions. It had done other projects that were something of the semblance of what is our turnaround strategy for our Japanese unit or our European unit, given flagging sales in those regions. I've done other stuff that related to organizational strategy, like how do we think about our capability building and how we align all the different stakeholders across different functional units and think about governance. So, all to say, I've done a number of things, and it's been interestingly cleanly translated into Web3, where a lot of what I learned ported over pretty nicely, even down to the diligence and how you think about NFT projects and value. After that, I spent some time at a biotech in a general manager role, where pretty much wore every hat, and that kind of holds true today in my role right now. I provide a lot of the Web3 expertise to the org. So that's me.
Incredible.
And yeah, so that's the background of the team. Do you have any questions? Or if not, I can move on into Lost Realms.
Honestly, share a lot in common with you. My core team six years ago started with 30 as well, but I was the management consultant. But I'm not the I'm not the COO. The CEO is actually a guy who was in game development industry for over 17 years now. So he's the one in charge of the CEO operations. I, on the other hand, I'm from a management consulting and a private equity background myself. So yeah. I just have to give a word about Machine Zone. It's one of the most incredible game development studios I've ever seen. Hailed the first generation of mobile grand strategy simulation games. Insane monetization, ingenious monetization and user acquisition, and probably, well, I'm a huge Travian fan. So when I saw Game of War on mobile, and how it blossomed, and the microtransactions, it was insane. It was actually what inspired the first game that my partner wanted to create. But anyway, I digress. Absolutely thrilled to see designers from Machine Zone, and also to hear that you and I share a similar industry before we entered the field. I always repeat the same thing in my AMAs. I'm the least qualified person on the entire team when it comes to game design or graphics or programming. But yeah, I have much better partners for those jobs. Anyway, let's continue. It's exciting.
Yeah, and that's the nice part about consulting, where you kind of slot into different roles based on the way that you were taught to think, more than what you know.
Well, I'm always my co-founders always say I'm more the mascot and the supporter, because I cannot fit everywhere, but I sort of, well, I spitball a lot of stuff, but they are the ones who ground them into reality for me. Anyway, yeah.
So that's our background, and I think we can talk a little bit about Lost Realms and what we are building. As mentioned, Lost Realms is going to incorporate a lot of what we have learned, and at its core, you can think about it like a tactical battle MMORPG. And our goal is to, let me even skip a slide ahead. Our goal is to reinvigorate the nostalgia that we we'd felt as kids, 20 years ago, playing all the games that are classics. I mean, for me, it was Lufia Earthbound. For Nick, it was Final Fantasy Tactics and Chrono Trigger.
Chrono Trigger, definitely.
Yeah, it's,
Yep.
and it's those games that are. I mean, they're still classics today. I mean, that's what makes them classics. I personally we take inspiration from games like Heroes of Might and Magic. I personally love that. Age of Wonders, Disciples 2. Thinking about those tactical 4X kinds of games.
Disciples 2 is quite a title.
The Disciples?
Disciples 2 is quite a title to quote. I mean, I think both you and Nick's gaming age and history is very, very similar to around mine. I know every single game you talked about, and I played every single one of them. Awesome.
I'm surprised. You're the first person to recognize the game. It is great. I love that game. I still play sometimes even now.
Really, really old school.
Yeah,
Right.
And it just reminds you a little bit about the D&D inspired games, and in some ways you'll see all of those elements come together with Lost Realms.
Right.
And that's really where we're rooted. You'll see that there's a whole world that we want to unlock in a universe that starts with Lost Realms. And this is a little bit about the tactical RPG battle loop that I was talking about. We have 40 plus different characters. 25 of them are the core base set, and then there's about 15 or 16 collaboration partners, and each of one of those heroes will be generative. We think identity is a fundamental part of Web3, and part of that identity is being able to adopt assets as your own and making it feel like it's your own as opposed to anybody else's. We'd seen in games in the past that, I mean, probably the closest analog that I have in mind right now is Message to Martians, where if you minted something, if you minted your character, they all kind of looked the same, and so as a result, people weren't really adopting them as PFPs. There wasn't a huge identity element to it, and so all of our characters are generative, so they will all feel bespoke in that sense. And so you can see that this is a bit of a party building game too. You're going to start with one hero, and you'll be able to recruit more over time, and you'll build your ideal party of 4 with their ideal, or rather your target hero combination benefits and bonuses, and go on different battles. And so I mentioned a little bit about our partners. One of the things that we think differentiates Web3 from Web2 is the permissionless design. And in my view anyway, what will get the masses here is free. Everyone is cool with free. I mean, that's how Reddit onboarded 3+ million wallets that were all airdropped. And it's a very easy way to acquire users. In my view, that's not necessarily what will get them to stay. Not thinking about the financialization or the fact that you can gain and lose money. I think what will get gamers to stay and realize the power of Web3 is composability and interoperability, because these are things that don't readily happen in Web2. They do happen sometimes, and they do happen with IP collaborations, but these things are often gated and limited in scope. I'll give you an example. If you were to say, and I do see some Magic ecosystem users in the audience, so it's a sense of when having different systems that operate on a single token, having characters, a single character that can likewise go into many different systems. So if you level up your character in Lost Realms, say, you spent all your time to level up to 30, 40, whatever it is. And then you, in Web2, like maybe in FIFA you'd carry over, but for other games and other companies, sorry, start from scratch. That's it. In Web3, what this permissionless design allows you to do, whether that's internal to the studio or someone external to you, is to use the progress that was made and carry it over. So it's like a nice new game plus. So imagine that we had Lost Realms and you did this. and you trained all your characters, and we then created a card battle game for you, like a Hearthstone type of game. And you were able to carry over some of those characters. Like, I think that's the stuff that will make people stay. There's always a question inherent to that statement about, are developers incentivized to do this? And that's the thesis that has to be tested. In the near term, it's a bit like, can the metaverse exist? Well, I mean, you would need a universal SDK and interoperability to do that. And that's probably, a true metaverse is probably like 10 years away, you know, if not more. But at the same time, you can get different segments of it and different hints of it over time. So here, probably where it starts is individual game developers start carrying over different NFTs to their different subgames. And that may grow over time as they see the different user acquisition and monetization mechanics in the space, and how they can make that sustainable and aligned with users at the same time. And we think that Web3 native studios do have a comparative advantage here. So as a Web3 native studio, it's in our interest to push this as much as possible. And I'm no stranger to the fact that Web2 studios are coming, and they're coming with gigantic user bases, and they will onboard those user bases. And maybe I'm thinking part of the goal is, how do we get those people to love our ecosystem? How do we get them to find our ecosystem to begin with?
So, ironically, my first answer would be actually tokens help solve a bit of that.
Absolutely. And
because,
this is where a lot of the yeah, sorry.
I always foresee, I always compare metaverses and games as especially the NFT assets, the core ones are the passports into different metaverses. So holding one, as long as the projects do collaborate, it functions like sharing visas and passports in different countries. You can go and play and explore, but of course, in order to generate revenue or income from those metaverses or universes, then at least the developers need to share some sort of understanding regarding the revenue split, and well, depending on the NFT, how small it can get, but I think tokens is actually an easier way to do the work over there. But yeah, it's still very prototypical, and a lot has to be done. But yeah, well, definitely. Sorry for interrupting. So please continue first. Absolutely inspiring.
No worries. And I think tokens are one way you can do it. And free NFTs are the other way you can do it. Effectively, it's just how do you acquire users through token economy, whether that's NFTs or tokens. I mean, we've seen that with LooksRare, for example, with their marketplace airdrops. We saw that with SOS, and I mean, everyone is adopting the give users tokens to attract them to your ecosystem.
Yeah, I think that's pretty old. And I always say in a Chinese saying, it's who's going to pay the bills? I mean, most token models plan to have the ultimate game economy or the future users to pay the bills, so to speak, while they get a mint out. But I think this doesn't really work as seen in the current economy and the so-called planned adoption for future users. It's really tough. Exactly what you said. When billions and billions of tokens are already unlocked for the initial holders who got it at a discount, it really is very unenticing and unattractive for future users to come aboard, especially with the current design of games out there right now. That's still struggling to decide between where they should place their focus on. Because this is actually very refreshing. Probably one of the first games I see in the space. Oops. Dr. J. Oh, your screen just got off there. Well, hope you did not disconnect. Oh no, it's my babbling. My babbling got in my way. Let's see if he'll come back on sooner. Well, I'll continue, so he can continue his presentation the moment he comes back. Okay. Oh, I'm still here. Let me take a quick look at the general and see if can you guys hear me? Maybe Dr. J just disconnected, I think. Can you repeat something? Can you guys hear me? Type something in general if you can hear me.
Oh, good.
Alright. Well, let's see if Dr. J will be locking back. This is actually the very first, well, not the very first, though. Well, let me fix that, Dr. J. You did, Dr. J. Okay, great.
Perfect. Sorry, browser crashed.
Good. Well, I was going to say that this is one of the most interesting Web3 oriented and NFT oriented game I've seen in the space. A little even more thought out than Degenheim, which recently came on, and certainly very interesting. Because I think with the current market sentiments, I have not seen projects that can garner enough strength that is shown by both Lost Realms and Degenheim. Definitely a lot I will have to learn, so I wouldn't stop you from your further presentation and would love to continue learning a bit more from you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can keep moving. So you see here that we have 10 different partners, and more than that, 3 different partners that are the most recent. And for us, these are all partners that we've personally connected with their communities. I think the only exception is Moonbirds. We partnered up with one of their community groups called Hootlist. But yeah, all of these communities, if they own the respective NFTs, will be able to recruit partner heroes that are all generative as well. So it's going back to interoperability and composability. One of the key issues is, amongst many, one of the key issues is how do you port over assets cleanly to another platform when I mean, if you're a pixel project, how do you become 3D? Then all of those assets need to be constructed de novo, effectively. And companies have approached this in 2 ways. Either number one, they have like one singular asset that represents the partner community. And those are games like Galaxy Fight Club, Arcade Inc. is another one, World Wide Web is another one, where there's just one singular asset to represent, say, Bored Apes. There's another model, which is Sandbox, where they build all 10,000 models, or 20, however many your project has, so it feels like it's yours and it's exactly corresponding to the asset that you have. Naturally, this takes a lot more time. And there's trade-offs to both of those models, where if you're doing the former, you don't have, again, that identity element that closely ties you to that asset. And at the same time, if you do the other side, you might be just spending months and months and months and years just creating assets from scratch for people, right? And I think we might get to the point where it'll be easier to build these things, but that's not today. So our system is a hybrid of that, where if you own the NFT, you'll be able to mint a second hero when it's time to mint or recruit your second hero for in-game token. And these heroes will inherently be generative, and these generative heroes have stay true and faithful to some of the traits in the collection. And again, we believe this is important, and we have designed for this. This is all our in-house Pixel team. Nobody else made these. So, yeah, I think moving on to the token, which we glossed upon. You could think about this as the center token of the ecosystem and universe we plan to build. And Lost Realms is our debut title for that ecosystem. So you can envision that these Genesis NFTs, I think the final supply is 6,742, these final NFTs are effectively the token spouts for all the utility that occurs in-game. Not just the utility that occurs in this game for Act 1, but for Act 2, for Act 3, and on top of that, the utility that occurs in games that are released afterward, that are related to the RPG genre and continues the universe that we have started. As mentioned, you can see some of the pixel art. I think our pixel art is phenomenal. Our team is... I can't speak enough praises about our pixel artist, Kopche. And one of the things that I have to mention, so as you unlock this world of Lost Realms, features will be released over time steadily. And I think this is, again, also a departure from how a good deal of Web 2 games work, where you have your early access and you still have access to, let's say, 80% of the content, maybe 70% of the content, and by the time full release is there, it's like 90 to 95%. That's a lot of games in Web 2. And let's say our model is probably most reminiscent of free-to-play mobile, where live operations and continuous deployment are extremely important because you're always trying to get more features released for people to spend more, right? Like that's fundamentally the free-to-play model. And so there, continuous deployment and live operations is essential. And you'll see some of that permeate into how we think a Web3 experience should look based on the users that are here. And it's maybe it's counterintuitive on the surface, where Nick likes to say it this way. I don't necessarily like to say it this way. He says that players in Web3 don't really want a finished game. They don't want something to be delivered. What they actually want is a feeling that there's something more around the corner, that features will be released over time, that things will build layer by layer, and that culminates into an experience that grows with you and scales with you. And going back to our learning about ecosystems, that's effectively what Artifact and Bored Apes had done, where you started with one asset, it grew into another asset with different utility, which had a third asset with different utility, and now Bored Apes is doing some metaverse with the other side, social metaverse play, right? And Artifact is now doing these, where they started with shoes, they then went into avatars, which then became all these wearable drops, and they just had a drop today with the suitcase brand at Ramoa. And so, to us, that's what a Web3 native experience looks like: continuous deployment of features that starts small and just builds and scales steadily. And that's what tends to hold the attention of this space, because it's constant catalysts on top of one another. And so what you will see relevant to this page is that this world map will initially be shrouded. This is just a representative world map. And over time, players, as a community, you could think about this first act as a player versus environment experience, where we as a community will work together to uncover different parts of the map. And over time, different actions will also get unlocked. And so this is where the MMO elements of this RPG experience start to kick in. We talked a little bit about how every character is fully generative, including the partner characters. Won't belabor that. But another thing is the tactical battles. Every character has their own has their own attack. They'll have their own skills based on their classes. And the game will feel like, I don't know, it'll feel like the old school tactical battle RPGs, where you take turns, you do attacks, and it'll look a little like this. And so that seems relatively simple. But where those games that shined was not necessarily just the core loop. It was some of the strategic depth that was involved in, like, partnering up your characters, choosing your party, having party skills unlocked based on the characters you own, stuff like that. And so you'll see a little bit of that infused into this gameplay experience. And again, this is where we talked about where there's flexibility for your playstyle. If you're more of a passive player, more of an active player, there's room for that. Where if you wanted to spend 10 hours and get the maximum rewards per week, cool, you can do that. We've also built systems based on the games that we've played so far that we hope make the experience more seamless for users. For example, limiting the number of transactions that occur, because having to do 3 to 5 transactions to conduct a couple actions is a lot. There's other stuff that you can consider in terms of queue management. Like we understand that it's a bit different in this game, where you don't necessarily own like one hero, or you don't own like a small amount. Like the top holders could own a lot, 50, 100, whatever it is, right? And that's also a departure from a lot of Web 2 games, where now you have to design for that and design the UI UX experience for that, and be able to queue many heroes at once. And like I experienced this firsthand with Axie, where I'm sure a bunch of you may have played Axie, where managing your stable of Axies was incredibly difficult because there weren't great queue management systems, and even the scholarships. I mean, when I stopped playing, there weren't that many automated solutions unless you looked for it. So anyway, this is another element of our experience where you see a bunch of, with the MMO experience, raid bosses are a natural element to this with MMORPGs. And so this is what a raid boss battle might look like. And these are all generative heroes with different characters, and this could be hundreds or thousands of people, depending on...
When you say generative hero, can I know what does generative hero mean?
So a generative hero, what it means is when you mint a hero, they don't all look the same. And so in the same way that Bored Apes has, every ape looks slightly different, and this is essential to their identity.
Oh, I see.
We incorporate the same thing here. And we think that's an essential part of Web3, because when you think about what leads to value in Web3, traditionally it's been the attention economy driven, as well as catalyst driven. So looking at Bored Apes, part of the reason why it succeeded was because of the Twitter community that was emboldened and this nascent NFT community that burgeoned off the top of just adopting one another's PFPs, or rather adopting their own PFP. And naturally this created virality, and especially amongst the folks who are already already had a good deal of influence in the space. And so I think that's something that Web2 companies going into Web3 don't always understand. Like, why does it matter? It matters because of intention economy. It matters because PFP identity is an essential and core part of the space's roots. So anyway, so those are the raid boss battles. And so for us, just to close out, our goal is to launch enduring gaming ecosystems that put players first. And in doing so, we think we can achieve what we think could be the next golden age for the player.
Sounds incredible. Actually, a lot to learn from these presentations just by listening to the principles and concepts and the way you position the project is incredible. We'll have a sneak question before we jump into the community questions. Certainly hope you don't mind staying for a little longer to answer some of the EMA questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
That comes to my mind is you mentioned there'll be some form of Web3 gameplay and experience upon mint. Can you expand a little bit on or sneak peek a little bit on what exactly that entails?
So I can even start from the minting process. So you'll mint your NFT, and what you will mint is not actually a hero. You will mint you'll mint a crystal.
Okay.
And this crystal you will be able to burn for a generative hero, random hero, one of the initial 25 that we discussed. If you decide to hold on to this crystal, there is a gacha mechanic where in addition to getting a random hero, if you hold on to your crystal over time, your crystal will age and get rarer. And when it gets rarer, there's a higher chance you'll get a rarer hero with higher base stats. So there's a bit of an element of when do you decide to unveil your hero? If you're a very active player, maybe you just want to do it right away. If you're trying to just be a more passive person and maximize the value, maybe you'll want to hold on to it and just let it age.
I'll be the person I am. I'll probably buy multiple crystals and do multiple things.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
You do that too. Just do a mix, hybrid. And yeah, so that's the initial experience. And then when you go to the summoning portal, you'll unveil your hero. Great. And then from there, you'll be able. You will have to bound your hero, or bind your hero rather. And when your hero is bound, it moves from the L1 Ethereum network, the logic, into the Arbitrum network on the L2. So this is our way of ensuring L1 liquidity while having an L2 game design ecosystem that minimizes gas costs. And we particularly like the hybrid ecosystem from that Ether Orcs had employed.
Incredible. We tried to do something. We were originally planning to do something like that on Ethereum and on Binance because we were in talks with the Binance NFT marketplace. So we would have something like that. But well, anyway, ultimately scrapped the idea. But cool, absolutely incredible.
It's interesting because here, like, I think L2s obviously are going to be the future, especially as games have to scale for millions and millions of users, right? Like that's just given. The question is, who is here today? Where is the liquidity today? And it's a fact that the liquidity is on ETH L1, and L2 volumes have gone down tremendously because ETH gas has been very low. Yeah, and so I guess once you just going back. Then you'll bind your hero. It's on the L2. Rather, you can't trade it, but then the game logic is on the L2, where you'll be able to play the game. And they'll be put into the mines, where then you can train your hero or begin exploration. Those are the 3 actions you can do right away.
Right. Well, definitely have to say the years of stealth and preparation have definitely paid off. And you guys picked, although not the best of times, but also I think it's a great time for you guys to find the core users you guys definitely need. I bet you guys must have on quite a lot of them. So yeah, well, let's go to some community questions. I believe you can only pick 4 of them. Well, I think are we doing pure from the AMA text channel, or will we be inviting some live guests to speak? But probably a bit hard to do so here in the VC, unless they don't have hand raised. Well, let's go to the AMA questions channel. It's just right above. I moved it down here. So just take a look at the AMA questions channel and, well, pick 4 lucky. And what are they getting? What is this AL? Is this the same as a whitelist, or is it?
Yes, that's a whitelist.
All right. So, any rough time frame on when the mint will happen, or still deciding?
Still deciding, and I don't want to pin a date to.
All right. To understandable. Absolutely understandable. So yes, let me pin the message that Elemental Raiders is picking.
Sure.
All right. Oh, I did. Okay.
Should I pick the questions?
Yeah, pick 4. I see a lot of people are typing now.
I do see one question. I saw many traits. Can you tell us how many are there? Probably 4,000 plus traits in all across 40 heroes. So it's probably even more than that. And our we have designed this to be what we believe could be the most expansive Web3 pixel universe. How can you find an equipment or even mythical gear? This is an interesting part, or a different way that we have designed our game. You will reveal that gear. Over time, as you explore, you may find pets, but the armor and sword and that gear that you have on your hero will stay fixed. And that, based on the stats of that gear, you will have the base stats of your hero, which then level up as you train. And this is intentional. We have seen that one of the issues in the space is inventory management. And we are no stranger to seeing that in the games that we have played, where sometimes it doesn't even feel like you're playing a game. It feels like you're managing your inventory, and that is the game. So we have obviated all of that. In this game, your hero is a singular asset that you use. And there are no accessories. If you find a pet, for example, it gets integrated into the metadata and will show up on your hero. These are the kinds of things that we think create a more seamless experience for users in this space right now with the current infrastructure. Your third question, special collaboration NFT. Right now, we're open to collaborations, but right now we're on pause. We have so much art already to make. And you can imagine like 40 different generative heroes that are all different, that have different traits and are randomized. Yeah, it's a lot. So I wouldn't discount the possibility, but for now we are on pause. So that's that. There was an earlier set of questions now. What is your biggest goal for this project? The ultimate goal? If we were to talk about the goal of Lost Realms, it's to build an amazing MMORPG ecosystem. If you're asking for the goal of Tribe, it's to architect the next golden age for the player. That's our goal on both counts. Your second question, you have so many excellent partners now. When a project encounters difficulties, will you seek their cooperation to achieve a win-win? I guess the question inherent to that question is there's sub-questions here implied. One of them could be if your floor price is not good. And then another question will be if your financial footing is not good. And like these are two different questions. Well, I mean, to answer the former, if the floor price is not good, well, that's something that we'll have to deal with. And there are a number of different levers that projects can pull to increase interest. Because if we talk about floor price as a proxy for interest, that's what it really is. We have tried to de-risk as much as possible. And one of those is to curate our whitelist very heavily, such that for some time it was just me whitelisting everyone. I whitelisted individually, must have been 1,000 people at that point. And we have made sure to form strong collaborations where we think players will truly be interested in the experience itself. If you're talking about the financials for Tribe or the difficulties therein, we have enough runway to last many months. We're well funded and not particularly concerned about that. All to say, we still haven't even pulled the lever of VC funding, and so those are other avenues that could always be pursued. To your third question, are you satisfied with the current progress of the project? Yeah, I like where we are. I think we can stand to do even better and improve and go faster, and that's my goal every single day.
Love that. All right. Oh, Dr. J, are you still there? Yep. Okay.
I'm checking on questions. I think there's time for one more.
I think we're on the second one, so I think we need two more, right? So just four whitelists. So maybe pick one that's a little shorter, and then one a normal one.
Yep. Give me a second. Let me check. So, what do you want to build for your fans and supporters? Like how will your game be part of our lives, making us have every day more desire to play and consume even more? I mean, there's an inherent question here about what makes people want to be attached to things, and we thought about that on a number of levels. If you're thinking about what makes people stay in Web3, it's community, but more than that, it's social. If you even think about the Web2 games that were on mobile, for example, like big MMOs, I would say that, especially for the bigger MMO free-to-plays, most of the time, let's say 75% of the time was spent on chat. It wasn't really spent on the game. So I think this is what games in this space, particularly Web3 native games, don't always understand, that it is fundamentally about making sure that your community is tight-knit and people feel like they're forming friendships. On another level, it's how do you better immerse players? And this is where the idea of storytelling in gaming is very important, and also another element that I think some Web3 games have not incorporated as much as they could because they don't understand necessarily or maybe they don't have capacity to think about the design there and how that's incorporated and integrated into the game. So those are probably two of the ways that I'd say attract players and keep them. And if we talk about the other elements like composability, interoperability, it's to give you cool experiences that grow over time. And this is where live operations and continuous deployment comes in. This is what holds people's interest in this space, knowing that, again, there is something always coming around the corner. So that's
Awesome.
that's that.
Three. One more.
Let's see. Lots of games lose their players after a few years. This is another question right under it. Due to scalability issues and lack of upgraded game future and bad game economy, what do you consider to be the best way of tackling this? It's pre-specifying these things and intentionally designing for it in advance to de-risk as much of it as possible. So if we look at these one by one, scalability issues, it's to think, how can you architect your economy and your game design to be here 5 years from now? And part of that, again, is thinking about how do your features layer over one another, and how do you sequence those features over time? And that's connected to the second thing. So if you're a game designer here in this space, the last thing you would want to do is to have a stagnant game. You would want it to continuously grow. So, for example, Lost Realms, it starts as PvE. It could go into PvP. It could go into GVG. There could be another island, not just Lost Realms. There could be a second game that is built on the token, where, again, you could port over some of your heroes. Like, these are some of the mechanics that you can think about where you can create a more sustainable economy with more token sinks, create design that is continuously interesting, and utilize player assets in a way that makes them feel like it was money well spent. So in terms of bad game economy, also related. So yeah, those are hopefully I answered those questions satisfactorily.
I think you did. Well, thank you for being here, Dr. J. Any last parting words? Any alpha to sneak for what to look out for in Q4 of this year?
Yeah, and we're angling toward launching in Q4. That's what I want to say.
Exciting.
So yeah. And for us, again, like our ultimate goal is to be a Web3 native studio in however that means. So that, in our view, means we put players first. And again, by putting players first, we think that we can help engineer the next golden age for the player. And that's what I want to leave you all with.
Incredible. I'm always very supportive of fellow Web3 developers, especially one that shares such a similar background as ours. So, we'll definitely ask you on to see if I can get a wireless myself as well. But I don't mind going to your server and grind a little bit as well. So, thank you for your time, and really glad to have you here. We have a great turnout today. I hope you guys can get some interested users over there, especially some Asian ones. I see a lot of interest generated actually in the Chinese chats. We'll definitely direct them over to your community. I see you have also a small Chinese tavern over there as well. Would definitely be interesting for them to go. And then for the Thai community, not sure if you guys have the Thai language down, but there's a lot of, there's a very blossoming and very, very active Thai crowd over here. And actually our Thai community over here is entirely self-raised. It was quite incredible. So, but I'm certainly hoping that some of the Thai community here will be taking a good look into your project over there. Any rough idea of the pricing of the mint, or still thinking?
I guess it's. I'd like to say it's very reasonable. Naturally,
okay, well that's good. Okay,
so,
as long as it's not 8 ETH.
No.
Okay. All right, that would be great.
You know the DJ High mint price, it'll be relatively close.
Oh, okay, good. Then I can get multiple. All right, all right, cool. Thank you for being here, and hope you have a great day. And would love to see a picture of your dog sometime soon. But yeah, well, thank you. Good luck out there. Hope we can meet each other again. Maybe next time we'll be streaming our game over in your community, or maybe we'll talk a bit more about your mint somewhere.
Yeah, and thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. J.
Reach out.
Most definitely. All right, guys. Take care, man. There you have it. Lost Realms, COO, Dr. J. A file from the server. Thank you for participating. And oh yes. So let's open up a row to reward all the people who have participated in this AMA. I'm going to open up a channel for everyone. It's at the top of the server. So go to the top. You'll see a Bond of Realms channel. Just click claim, and you'll get a Bond of Stone mark. It's a quest mark on our server. Gather 4 of these marks, and you can exchange for whitelists, NFTs, special roles that lets you more NFTs or money. So yeah, have fun. And I'll leave it open for 5 minutes, maybe. And yeah, feel free to explore. I'm going to take this opportunity to take a look at the Lost Realms. I looked into it. I think everything they do is very interesting. It's just a nightmare to translate. That's my first idea. Even more so than my community. But it's definitely very interesting. I can see the Web3 angle, the layers of enigmatic messages and intrigue. Definitely a lot of things right. Those are two very great experiences. One is from Degenheim and one is from Lost Realms. Two very great ways to really approach the Web3 crowds that are more prevalent in the field. Could certainly learn a lot from these guys. But I guess they both have actually quite interesting. Both have 15 to 20 man community teams. I guess that's it's a lot bigger than I imagined. With their size, that's why it's so detailed. Each one. Definitely could learn something from there. Right? I'm looking forward to their mint. I certainly want to see what they are trying to do and how they do it. Definitely have great Web3 community building experience for us to learn. Alright, thank you for being here, guys. It's been a while since I've seen this many people in our town square. If you guys are new, feel free to take a look at our what is Apeiron channel on top. We've got some gameplay trailers, some subscriptions, we've got our own marketplace. We're just waiting for our demo. We'll stream it this weekend. I'll sneak peek a little bit this weekend, and I'll officially sneak peek a version for my community next Sunday. It wouldn't be a full version. I am saving the full stream with one of the bigger KOLs in Web 2. We'll do it together from start to boss. But I'll definitely be streaming what changes have been made from our summer build to this build. This is actually the launch quality we're going for. So quite an exciting time. Hopefully it's worth the wait for a lot of the dudes here who've been with us since... A lot of them are with us been since April and May. Some of them are even older, from December and January. Well, but I guess the most impatient one is me. I've been waiting for 7 years almost. Certainly excited to show at least some of it, the battle part of it, to you guys. Okay, we'll see a lot of new dudes around, probably from Questoba. Hope they are not spamming chat with fireballs. Seems okay. Right, I'll leave you guys be. Maybe I'll open up an activity for you guys to do. Or I don't see a lot of them. Maybe poker. Well, I don't think poker can fit this many people. Oh well, I'll just open it up for you guys. I'll head back straight to work. Got a lot to do. A lot of comments to make on the demo build I just received today. But yeah, going to stream to Hashed first tomorrow, and then I'll stream to you guys on Sunday, just a little bit. All right, take care, guys.